All right, hello. This is John Krysinsky, Pittsburgh Soccer Now. Welcome to a new episode of Sounding Off on Soccer. I'm here. I have a very special guest lined up, Mike Decourcy, my fellow Point Park alumnus. He's going to join me. We're going to talk about a bunch of topics. We're going to kind of steer away from Pittsburgh for a few minutes for this podcast anyway, and talk about some of the big topics. The U.S. men's national team, the FIFA World Club Cup, which we just saw. Mike was there in New Jersey this past Sunday. And then, of course, we may get into some other fun discussions. So looking forward to that. So without further ado, I'm going to bring Mike on to the podcast very shortly here. So just hang with me as we bring on one of our favorite guests, Mike Decourcy, to the podcast. So let's just give me a second here. All right, we're back here with Mike Decourcy. Mike, I think it's like our annual check-in for as United States men's national team. Sometimes we talk women's national team, but there's been a lot of really good topics in terms of soccer and soccer that you've covered recently. So, and you're writing about. So, Mike from the Sporting News, we love having you on. It's great to have you back.
Oh, it's great to be back and nice to do it from not so long a distance as when we first started a few years ago.
Absolutely. And you've been back in Pittsburgh and you've been able to enjoy some soccer in Pittsburgh as well. I think did you end up going to the Liverpool match?
I did,
How was that?
yes. It was
Oh,
phenomenal. It was great. It really was. We had very good weather, and Batiste turned out to be obviously we knew they were a significant team, but they ended up having a
yeah.
great year as well.
Yeah.
And I remember when I looked at the lineup for Liverpool because we knew that there were going to be a lot of players absent because of Euros and all that. When I looked at the lineup, and first of all, Salah was in there, which helped.
Yeah.
But I looked at it and I said, that's good enough. I mean, that
Yeah.
makes me feel like this was money well spent.
Well, absolutely. I think Pittsburgh fans really enjoyed it, and I think there is just something about Liverpool. I think that I think brought the people to Acrisure Stadium, and obviously, it was just a great atmosphere. So hopefully next time the teams come, it won't be we won't have to wait. I think we've been waiting somewhere in the usually 4 to 5 years between games. So hopefully we're not going to wait. This is obviously this year and next year, present uh, obviously obstacles
Right.
for some of that, but maybe not. I just had some discussions with Riverhounds people, and I don't know if it was more for a training piece or pre or matches that might be leading up to the World Cup. There's could be some potential for Pittsburgh to be involved in some way, shape, or form, but we don't have any details. I think they're trying. I think local officials in this area are trying to see, well, maybe we could schedule there's a friendly here between two clubs that will be playing in the World Cup because there's going
Right.
to be 48 teams and, getting used to being in the States and all that kind of stuff. I don't know
That would be fantastic.
if you've heard anything along those lines.
I have not, but I think it would be a great venue for any teams, especially those looking for a climate that might not be disruptive to their training. Remember that I mean I wrote about this, and we can talk about it if you like, about the gatekeeping that happened during the Club World Cup from mostly from European sources. Uh, but there is some reality to it. I mean, if you go stage an exhibition in Orlando, you're going to have to cope with the weather. Whereas if you come here, the odds are good that you're going to get a better dose of playable weather. It's not obviously the weather is the weather, so you don't know for sure, but your odds increase playing here versus a lot of cities in North America.
Well, and you made a really good case in your piece before the final. I think it was
Yes.
relating to, maybe some of the European teams or were complaining about the weather situation, but here in the States and the delays and whatnot. But you made a really good case. You talked about the fact well, I loved how you ended that piece too, because you kind of said, well, next year in Dallas, what was it, 30 years ago, Jurgen Klinsmann scored 2 goals for Germany in a 3-2 win at Dallas, and it was 95 degrees or whatever it was.
It
And
was it was
it
John,
yeah,
120 degrees on the
yeah,
field.
right.
And I think I've looked it up, and I think it was like 108 air temperature with significant humidity. And I sat in the stands with my wife, and back then, with the World Cup coming, it was like a lot of people were like, "What is this thing that's come to the States?" So they erected these chain link fences all around the stadium, all around the field, and that only made it hotter for
Yeah,
us. So on the field, Jurgen was sweating and scoring, and we in the stands were. And we're going to have 9 games as it stands now in Dallas, and every one of them will be air conditioned.
air conditioned. That
So,
was a great way to finish that piece. I just sweet irony there. But I mean, look, you even said too, the fact is that next year heading into the World Cup, we could be doubling the attendance of what happened in 94 or the best attendance ever
right.
in any World Cup. So that to me is pretty remarkable alone. Obviously, they're increasing the amount of games and teams, but still, I think that's I mean, FIFA, that's probably music to their ears.
Yes. Well, in 1994, there was a lot of this same, why
Mhm.
are they getting the World Cup?
Right.
And what happened then was largely because we didn't have a league. NASL had folded a dozen years before, or 10 years before, a dozen years before we got MLS. And there wasn't a major league here. And so a lot of people, why would you take it there? And we produced what is still the largest attendance of any World Cup. And back then there were 10 or 12 fewer games than there were in the past few World Cups, the ones after the expansion to 32 teams. And now we're expanding to 48. So I did the math, and with the capacities that we have in place for this World Cup, it's possible that they could double the record, which was 3.5 plus million for 94. We could
Mhm.
go over 7 if we get capacity crowds more or less across the board. And I think that would be a remarkable statement for North American soccer, for Mexico, for Canada, and especially the US.
Well, and I also think in terms of logistics, we might, although the time zones are a barrier, but the fact that, the facilities are larger and they're just larger. And and everything else is, logistics it's just going to be a little bit more spread out probably than any other World Cup, but still, I think
Hey,
yeah.
in Brazil in 2014,
Mm,
when I covered, it was
right.
really difficult to get around.
True.
It was prohibitive to get around. So I was stationed in Sao Paulo for the entire time I was there.
Right.
I was there for 2.5 weeks, and I was able to see the opener. I was able to see the U.S. train for as long as they'd allow us, and then I saw 3 other games as well. And it was great, but it was impossible to go to all the U.S. games, which were thousands of miles away and thousands of dollars to travel to them.
Hmm.
We were only able to handle sending Ivis Galarsep then from Sporting News and Goal. And he went to all the U.S. games, and so I wasn't able to go to them because of that distance. So it's a challenge. I mean, yeah, like if you have it in England, they got some big stadiums, and it's all those trains and all that. Yeah, it'd be a lot easier. But we're going to put together more people from more countries, and more people are going to be introduced to soccer here, and the sport is only going to continue to grow.
Yeah, this is the perfect time really for it. I think in anywhere in this cycle of the last, maybe even the last 10 to next 5 to 10 years, I think is really it's been long due in a way because 94, that's a long time. But it's never easy to get these big events. So that's a great thing. So we're looking forward to it. I'd like to get your thoughts. And obviously, before we get to the U.S. men's national team, just real quick, Sunday's match and just your thoughts overall in terms of what you saw from those teams playing in the States and I don't obviously think PSG and Chelsea are, yeah, I'm sure they mixed in kind of what their lineups would look like, but it still was extremely high level stuff we were watching.
I think those were pretty close to full strength
Yeah,
lineups, John. And
yeah,
PSG played theirs through most of the tournament, which was
yeah.
interesting. They did not do a ton of rotation, which I thought they would do more. regarding their lineup. But for the final, you had the best players out there: Due,
Yeah.
Dembele, Cole Palmer on the other side. You had great players out there, and it was a really interesting match because Due had that one opportunity about, I don't know, maybe it was a dozen minutes in or so. And
Right.
everybody in the stadium thought, okay, there goes the goal. It's going to start. The flood's going to open and all that. And he didn't shoot. And we were like just absolutely befuddled. And I've talked about this in other venues that one of the things in sports that frosts me is when analysts who I do basketball analysis for Big Ten Network, and when I hear analysts for other networks that say be more selfish. I see it in soccer and I see it in
Hmm.
basketball or
Hmm.
hockey. I see it in hockey. And here's my point about that, John. It's not selfish to take that shot. It's your job. Your job, if you're Due, is to score the goal. You had the best opportunity to score that goal. He made an ill-advised pass that led to nothing, and that changed everything. If that ball goes into the back of the net, and it was at least 50-50 if he fires that it would have been, and I think the
Hmm.
odds were greater that he would have scored.
Hmm.
It's at least 50-50. If they go up 1-0, I think it's a different game. But once he passed that up, then you saw Chelsea, which had already been the better team to that point, start to really take advantage of the space on their right, uh, PSG's left, which no one had been able to do going all the way back to the round of 16 in Champions League, where they shut down Salah on that side. But they just gave so much space to Cole Palmer, and he took such great advantage. He was phenomenal in that game. When I was doing my column about him, I looked it up. I knew that he had been limited at the Euros last year in terms of his playing time. He's only started for England 5 times. It's hard for me to imagine him not starting next year
Right.
here in the US. And they've got to figure out how to get him out there because he is a terrific talent. He's a little bit feisty. I mean, even up 3-0, if a pass went a way that he didn't like, he's still out there waving his arms at 3-0 in the 88th minute or whatever. So he can probably be a little bit tough that way. But boy, what a talent and a hard worker. He was great defensively as well. We had a capacity crowd there. That's going to be where they play the World Cup final. So all of us who were there are thinking 12, 52, 53 weeks ahead. It was exactly 53 weeks
Hmm.
from that day that they'll play the final. So I was thinking a little bit about how cool it'd be to be back there next July and see what, who joins us. I think that what they showed is they can put that game on, the biggest game with that crowd. It was pretty comfortable getting in and out
Hmm.
for those of us who were driving.
Hmm.
So I think it's going to work out great for next summer's World Cup to have the game there.
Yeah, I mean that venue is always going to be, like if it's more of a Super Bowl or I don't know, the NCAA tournament. I think it's East Rutherford did host the NCAA tournament finals at one point. Um,
1996.
yeah, Syracuse, right? And
Syracuse
Kentucky.
was there, Mississippi State,
Mm,
and Kentucky and
that's
UMass.
right. Yeah,
Pittsburgh's
so
own John
I remember.
Calipari.
I remember. Yeah. But yeah, I can remember every Final Four like in the 80s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. I just can't remember like 2 years ago. But yeah, that was. But from a logistics standpoint, I know that sometimes that's just. I think it's more those bigger of like not just like a 1 day game situation. I think they're great. It's not like people. I don't know. That's just my opinion. Thought. I grew up in that area, so I know how difficult it can be. But those big Super Bowl, those type events where a lot of people stay in Manhattan and then
Right.
all that, that's a little bit different. But I think then just in terms of getting in and out for one big huge game, one big day, I think the final, I think it's going to be great there. So yeah, in terms of atmosphere, so it was, what was it like? I mean, what
I
was
thought
that
it was
atmosphere
great.
like? Hmm.
A lot of Chelsea fans,
Yeah.
particularly in the West End zone, they were really gathered there. They had it was a terrific crowd. They really were into it. Obviously, they got a show because it wasn't like a bunker game. It was two teams trying to go at it.
Right.
One team having the greater success. So I thought it was terrific. They had the complication, and not this is not a political statement, but you had the complication of the president being there.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
thought, and I'm talking about strictly from a logistical standpoint, I
Right.
thought even with that, access egress was really good, and that was
Right.
true even when after the game we had a difficulty getting to where we were supposed to go for press conference and mix zone, and the Secret Service was really cool.
Yeah.
They were
Good.
actually really cooperative. They were not they were not rough on the two of us got separated because they sent us the wrong way. And the Secret Service was really good about telling us where to go, where they were comfortable with us going. So it all worked out. I thought. New York, New Jersey. I've been up there a ton of times for different events. I've never had a bad experience there. So I'm really excited about next year and hoping that I get approved for credential.
Yeah, I think we all are. So that was my question, in terms of the media. Sometimes you just feel like when you're even covering U.S. men's national teams, which I've covered plenty of, you kind of feel like they push you. They put, the larger the game, sometimes it's just tough to find spots for everybody and all that kind of stuff. But you felt like, as far as FIFA and setup for media, was good.
It was good for that. Yes,
Hmm.
absolutely. It'll be interesting to see what they do for next year because, like in Brazil, in Sao Paulo, it was all outdoors. All of the media stuff was
Right.
outdoors, and it was basically taking up the upper level, the upper deck of.
Yeah.
And so I don't. We were in the football press box for this, so I don't know what the situation will be for next summer. For this, it was terrific. There was plenty of space to accommodate the number of people who covered the final. And so we'll see. I thought post game, once we got to where we wanted to go, I thought it went great. European clubs can be a little difficult. I mean, they brought Cole Palmer in after the
Hmm.
game for 4 questions, and Cole is not exactly loquacious. So
Hmm.
you got four questions, which meant less than 4 sentences, basically.
Yeah.
And they could have been a little bit more accommodating than they were, but all in all, the experience was terrific.
Yeah, accessibility, with the bigger, and I don't know if people that are listening like understand how difficult accessibility is when you're in these environments. Like I've had accessibility to the U.S. women's national team 10 years ago at Heinz Field at the time, like was even like a little tough then. And yet I had a chance to talk to just about every player at different points, whether it was the day of the game or the day before, where once you get into these situations, I mean, you just accessibility becomes very, very difficult, almost impossible.
And they're changing around some things,
Yeah,
so we'll see how it works next year. I mean, in the past they had what they call a mix zone. I don't know how
right,
whether this is too inside baseball, but every player would have to walk through this sort of
right,
tunnel almost
right.
with reporters on the opposite side of railings, and they could stop or not stop. And then they did not do that for this. They
Mm,
basically pulled out specific players and sent them to a similar arrangement, but there were only specific players. I don't know what I think they're going toward that for next year, but we'll see whether I took a survey and I said I was not in favor of that. I remember specifically when I was in Brazil, I was
hmm.
at the Belgium Korea game, South Korea, and at that point it was established that the U.S. would play Belgium in the round of 16, the famous Tim Howard game. Uh,
Right.
and so Kevin Morales, who played for Everton with Tim, was on Belgium's team. And I recognized him and I recognized the connection. And I asked to stop him, and he was very kind. And I think I was the only person that was there. Maybe eventually somebody else came up. And I got a bunch of questions in about Tim and what it'd be like to go against him, et cetera. And I wouldn't have gotten that opportunity in the current setup. So I preferred that, even though I know that sometimes players you want to talk to are going to pass you. But the other advantage of that old arrangement is if you had specific questions for that player and he still said no, then you could say he declined to talk. But now we'll never
Right.
know if like Weston McKennie was not made available after the game that Juventus played in DC.
Hmm.
And I don't know. I mean, I caught him walking down the hallway and shouted a question to him and he answered it, but I don't know whether he declined to talk to the media or they just never asked him.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, the days, like I said, I had such accessibility. I mean, Megan Rapinoe gave me 5, 10 minutes. Just I wanted to talk to her about Klingenberg, and it just turned into a great conversation. I did those days. I don't know if they're gone. I think training and pregame, some of the other stuff. and even those times it's tough because then they usually select certain players and that sort of thing. So, all right, well, speaking of the U.S. men's national team, McKenny and this group, I mean, the Gold Cup, Mike, I mean, just your overall thoughts on, again, well recapped in some of your columns, but I have the sense that this is a team that they have a significant amount of identity creating to do between now and maybe next May or June.
I totally agree with that. Now, what will be interesting, I mean, they have two fall games, one at Red Bull Arena in the Meadowland, excuse me, in the Harrison, New Jersey, south
Hmm.
of New York. And then they have a second game in Columbus against Japan. And the first one's against South Korea, and the second one's against Japan. And there's been a lot of talk about who they should bring in for those games. I'm a big believer, John, that you have to bring in the regular squad. Uh,
Yeah.
Whoever
Now,
you
yeah.
thought came out of the Gold Cup as a true aspirant for next summer, okay. And obviously, I would think Diego Luna would be one of those. Malik Tillman, no doubt. I think he's a starter now. I think that Freeze, the goalkeeper, Matt Freeze, I think certainly is someone I would keep as my third goalkeeper no matter what. Because
Right.
what he showed me in the Costa Rica shootout is that if I get into a circumstance where I need, like it's round of 16 or something like that, and I need to win a shootout to advance, I would seriously consider replacing the goalkeeper. No offense to Matt Turner or whoever else might be the number one, but what I saw in that shootout would suggest that it's a possibility that it might be wise to go in that direction. So I would definitely keep him as a third. But you need to have Pulisic back in there. You need to have Weston McKennie. You need to have Timothy Weah, etc. I think the message sending is over. The message sending that should happen now should be in person. Like, this is what we need from you. If you don't want to give it to us between now and next summer, then okay, we're going to have to figure something out. But in terms of sort of I'm not a mannequin and all those kinds of quotes that Pochettino put out to sort of
Yeah.
put Christian in his place, that sort of thing. I think that's over. They should know now who their guys are, who the best group they have is. If anybody emerges during the next 9 months after September, fine. But that camp should be the best you think you have. And so I heard others express this week. Carly Lloyd, who's analyzing for Fox Sports, said she thinks leave them out, leave out
Mm.
Pulisic and some others. I think that's a mistake.
Hmm.
Timothy Weah was not there for the Gold Cup. It was not his fault. Weston McKennie was not there at the Gold Cup. It wasn't his fault. And as a result of all the players who couldn't be there either because of injury or whatever, or the commitment to the Club World Cup, I thought it made perfect sense for Pulisic to say, it's not worth my effort. It's not worth my exhaustion that I'll arrive next year in LA on
Hmm.
June 12th and not have my A game. I want his A game on June 12th at SoFi Stadium. I
Yeah.
want him to be as fresh and crisp and on the game as he can be. And if you're talking about total of like 6 weeks rest in a 3 year period, I don't think you're getting it. So I don't I was totally on his side for that. And I thought when he said that he should come in for the friendlies, he was willing. I thought they should have taken him up on it. Like Cole Palmer was with England for their qualifier in early June, and then he booked for Chelsea. So why not do the same, even though he wasn't in the Club World Cup? I didn't have a problem with that. But I don't love where they are right now because of what happened with that. I don't that little disconnect. I don't love the fact that they've now basically been with him for almost a year, and I still don't know how he wants to play, John. I
Right.
wrote that in one of my columns. I'm not 100%. I think he's starting to feel it out. I think that formation that he played in the Gold Cup toward the end is what he wants to do. And now he just has to get better players in there. But I'm still not 100% sold. He knows what his best formation and approach would be.
Right. Right. And I guess that kind of maybe I'm wrong, correct me, but it was kind of wavering between more of like a 4-4-2 and then the 4-2-3-1,
Right.
4-3, yeah, 4-3-2-1. But again, that's what we still need to see a little bit more. And again, personnel sometimes will play into that as well. They are not, and that's the thing, that's the question, the identity piece. Like they are not, we are, this has been what has, and you've covered US soccer long enough to know this. Like I think we've been at our best when we've been a counterattacking country, counterattacking group, and that's for sure. And we have the personnel to play that way. And it would be interesting. I'm that's kind of we may want to get back to the basics, but um, in terms of we're not going to outpossess a lot of teams anyway. So I've always said, taking pages from Bob Lilly's book, this would be that would be an amazing system for the US, but it just you'd have to have like incredible culture building and buy-in to develop a specific system. But I think there's just a lot of questions in terms of that, and we want to see what it's going to be like, and utilizing Pulisic. How are you going to utilize him? Where's he going to be? And we've seen his strengths play out, I think, especially in Italy now. So I think that's something we're looking at to see where it is, and also the leadership piece of it, because you th- there's obviously been, if anything, something's been played out in the public eye. But in terms of this group, this group that's going to be heading in as veteran players, they, they have to kind of take the mantle in terms of the leadership here. And I think that's what was missing. I mean, there's Tyler Adams, there's guys like that are just going to be with this team, and they're good leaders, but I still feel like there's some question marks there, Mike.
Well, I think Tyler Adams is a great leader when
Hmm.
he is healthy
Right.
and comfortable and playing the position where he's best. And they did not really use him as a true defensive midfielder, number six, whatever you want to call it, in
Hmm.
the Gold Cup. He was floating a little bit more as what you might refer to as a number eight, somebody that was closer to box to box. He didn't go all the
Right.
way forward, but he wasn't as rooted in the back. And some of that's the nature of the opposition you're playing, which is not going to have a lot of someone like Guatemala, excuse me, is not going to have as much possession as you
Right.
are. So you're not the defensive midfielder position is not as necessary. But I think as he continues to sort of try to find his place, it's hard to be a leader when you're not totally secure yourself. It's hard to be a leader. That's why Ream was the ideal captain for the Gold Cup
Hmm.
because his footing. I still think he's too old uh,
Right.
for that position against the kind of opponent you hope to eventually face. No offense to Tim Ream, but he was slow when he was young. He
Yeah.
was always a half step slow when he was young.
Hmm.
He's great on the ball. He has been a great passer. I think that part of it's diminishing a little bit, but he was an ideal captain for the Gold Cup because he knew he was going to be out there. He knew what his job was. He handled it well, and that was fine. But what's
And also to add to that, I think it's always nice to have that type of veteran presence like his, like just
yeah,
really experienced when you have a younger group around them,
right, right,
or
exactly.
inexperienced. Yeah. Hmm.
Exactly. So I will what they'll put in place next summer in that sense, but Christian has to be a leader even if he's not wearing the armband. He has to be Weston has to be a leader just because of his energy and it has to be positive. He has to be the hardworking player that we've seen at his best. That sometimes drifts out of that, but you can't drift out of that at the World Cup. It's too important. You've played for this your entire life. I don't think that's going to be a problem. I think Weston McKennie's going to be great next summer because when he's switched on, he's almost always terrific. And
Yeah.
I can't imagine him not being switched on for an American World Cup. I thought what you saw with Chris Richards was terrific. He was he. I think his performance at the Gold Cup was underrated because there wasn't the glamour opposition. We didn't play Canada. Eventually, Mexico, they do play, and And so he didn't have his best game against them because what happened around him didn't always work right. But he did some. He had phenomenal plays in every single game that they played. And I thought that was really encouraging for that was maybe the most underrated part that came out of this tournament. It was interesting. I was listening to a podcast uh, the other day, and Tony Miola and Charlie Davies and they were talking about and Conrad. They were talking about who was the most indispensable American player at this point, and they all said Pulisic first, and they all said Jedi Robinson second. And I'm like, Chris Richards. Like, I love
Really?
Jedi. He's terrific.
Yeah.
And he's the second best player on the
Yeah.
team. But
Right.
you don't have two good central defenders, so you better have one that's really good. And right now,
Right.
with the Ray Richards played, I think he might qualify as that.
That's important, especially now. I just feel like we've gone into World Cups with like, oh, this guy's really, you don't know. Like, there was a Clint Mathis thing going in 2002, I think, and he was sure he scored some goals, but he really wasn't the star that came out of that. It was Donovan, it was Beasley, like those guys. That was
Right.
that group that went on for years after that. But I think about center backs and like that's been one of our Achilles heels for
Yes.
years, for as long as we've been at this post 94, you know era of US soccer. So I think it's still mind-boggling because we've been so good at developing keepers and defenders. Like I think there have been some good ones that have played overseas with but I don't know. It feels like that that's definitely a position I think we can be better. We can produce better talent. So hopefully maybe
Yeah.
that's coming, but um, I know the decision making and just that those type of things do go into play with that position at this level, at this on that stage. So it's not all about the physical
Right.
aspects of it, and I think that's something that a lot of mainstream American, journalists in media maybe don't see that big picture of the pedigree, the just being able to make those decisions and the technical ability, not so much the athletic ability. But we could talk about that all day. But that's something mainstream American media that cover or see soccer, every once in a while. Um, it's not that easy.
Right. It's a tough position. I would never want to be
Yeah,
a center back. Because I mean, Miles Robinson for Cincinnati the other night makes
yeah,
the right play against Cincinnati, but he didn't clear it in the right direction. And it's an own goal. I mean, he
right.
made the right decision. The ball was coming in hard. He had to do something. He tries to intercept it and it goes in. And I mean, not that those kinds of things have happened to the absolute best defenders in history. I would not want to be that player. If I were a soccer player, I'd much rather be a midfielder or a forward than a center back. That's
Yeah.
a tough deal.
Yeah, no doubt. And the stage is going to be enormous next year. So any of these guys, any way they could be battle tested, I think it's going to help a lot. All right, Mike, my last topic, I wanted to steer a little bit off topic a little bit in terms of soccer, but you wrote about Michael Jordan versus LeBron. I think it's one of those fun things in sports that we talk about. We just love to you go into a barber shop or you sit at a bar stool and it's just sometimes it's just a great way to talk and make connection with somebody else and just talk about I think I grew up, probably you too, a little bit, Ali versus whoever else,
Right?
Joe Lewis and those type of things. You would hear those art, maybe even our people who came before us would always get into those discussions. And I just feel like that the Michael Jordan LeBron discussion is so fascinating. And I think you made such a great case for LeBron. And I have been kind of on that. It's hard because I watched Jordan. I saw the greatness. I experienced those in the moment, and in having been a diehard Knicks fan during that time, he broke our hearts a few times,
Right.
and so um, you just had to tip your cap and just say this, this guy his willingness, his desire to win, all those things. But when you when you put the full body of work, what LeBron has done, and he's still doing it at such a high level, and you laid all this out so well in your column. I just have to I want to use this forum just, to say that I think I agree with you. I think that but yet it absolutely amazes me, and I don't know if it was just from your article or from other places I've seen this, but the the negative
Oh,
reaction, I know what it was. There was a top 10 list yesterday, the top 10 NBA all-time players, and there were people even suggesting LeBron should be off the top 10 list, and it's like, are you kidding me? And there's just maybe we're too close to him in real time. And I was close to Jordan in real time, maybe before he started winning all these championships, where people were like, "Oh, you know, he's just he shoots too much and blah 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 blah." I mean, we've heard that, but I don't know. I just think that you made a great case, Mike. That's all. I just wanted to say that.
well, it's interesting. One of the things I talked about in the article was how LeBron is less appreciated in his time than any great athlete that I can remember. I
Hmm.
mean, a lot of people didn't like Tom Brady, especially in the city where we live.
Hmm.
But at a certain point, you just had to say, "Holy cow, how good is he?" You just had to give it up and say, even with all the other stuff around it, he's just so good. Uh, LeBron, it's just no matter how many points he scores, how many finals he makes, how many games he wins, how long he goes, Olympic gold medal at age 39, where he's the best player on the team and the best
Yes.
player in the tournament. No matter what he does, there's a certain segment of people that just reject him, and I don't understand it. One person I spoke to was really had an interesting comment. James Causey is a columnist for the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel, and he said that he thinks that LeBron is too nice, that the anti-hero has become the person of the moment,
Right.
and like you couldn't have had a show like Breaking Bad in 1985 or something like that. Like no
Hmm.
one would have watched 6 seasons of a show about a drug dealer, for instance. And so you can see how like the anti, and I'm not comparing anybody to drug dealer, but I'm just saying that anti-hero concept is
Right.
totally different now.
Hmm.
And LeBron, like no trouble, no issues, no anything, stands up for what he believes in, raised 3 kids, married to the same woman, never been in any controversy of any sort, in terms of off the field, off the floor stuff. And yet he's not appreciated. I don't understand that. I won't ever understand that. What I see when I watch him is breathtaking.
Hmm.
And just because he had a televised special when he
Yeah.
changed teams as a free agent, like I thought that was awful, and I thought he deserved uh,
Hmm.
a little bit of a comeuppance. And I thought that the 2011 NBA Finals, when he was terrible and
Hmm.
Dallas won, I thought that was like his penance. And from
Right.
then on, I figured, go get him. And he's been just ridiculous. In 2015, I wrote that
Hmm.
I thought that he had surpassed Jordan. And he has had a Hall of Fame career in the 10 years since. He scored more points than some of the greatest players of all time, gotten more rebounds, passed for more assists. Just in those 10 years, from age 30 to 40, he's had a Hall of Fame career, let alone what he did from 18 to 30. He's ridiculous.
Oh, I completely agree. And it's just, again, he's an ageless wonder. I just wanted to add real quick too, his foundation and what he's done in his philanthropy, just schools, literally schools of kids that have, maybe his foundation have identified where, who could get a better education and life skills and all those type things. Like he's put a concentrated effort into his philanthropy, and I really appreciate there's a lot out there about all that. So you can certainly look and read into it. But I think that piece of it, and then the other piece is that Mike and you and I both know this, and I think it's a great segue with soccer as well. And I think LeBron appreciates soccer too
Yeah, he's an
because of
owner.
this.
He's a
He's
Liverpool
an owner.
fan.
Uh,
He's a part owner of I think he says a part of the team as well. Yeah.
hmm And but just as the fact is that I think he might be, if not one of the greatest mind in terms of reading and seeing things before they happen in terms of on court awareness and he sort of revolutionized. I mean, Magic Johnson, of course, did this, as a point guard, but LeBron just sort of revolutionized it that you don't have to be a traditional point guard in that sense and obviously Jokic is taking it to even
Right.
taking that and taking it to a totally different realm as well. But my point is that LeBron just can be that guy that everyone, he can dictate basically help dictate both on both sides of the ball. How things can be played, especially because his versatility, and he can play so many different positions, but yet still I think, and in terms of playing the team game and moving the ball and using all his teammates, and again, this is not a guy that has to score 35 points a game or 30 or 25 for his team to win. And I think that's
Right.
maybe the secret, maybe the most underrated thing about him.
Right. I think he's fourth in career assists as well as being the all-time leading scorer. So that says a
Mhm.
lot.
Mhm. Yeah, so I equate that, and then I look at it from a soccer perspective, and I say, he makes everybody around him better. He helps dictate. I think a good midfielder, a good leader in soccer can be that player, set the tone for the rest of his team. I know it's 11 teammates, it's 10 other teammates on the field versus four others, which also makes a great player have such an impact. And I think your column, I think, had made an incredible case in terms of LeBron had what he had to work with versus what Michael had to work with.
Right. Yeah, LeBron has been on some pretty grim teams and gotten a lot done. And one of my favorite stats is there were two players, J.R. Smith and Iman Shumpert, who
Hmm.
were playing with the New York Knicks in the 2014-15 season. And in right around New Year's Day, the Knicks were 5-31. And then they were traded to the
Don't have to tell
Cavs.
me. I remember.
They were traded to the Cavs,
Yep.
and that team wound up in the NBA Finals, and the following year won it. So
Hmm.
they went from 5-31. I mean, I hate to say this, losers to
Yeah.
NBA champions. Why? They were pretty good players, but the difference in those two situations is LeBron, no LeBron. And that's way too often overlooked how he elevates players no matter what. When he left the Cavs after the 2010 season, 2009-10, they'd won 61 games. He left, they won 19 the next year with and very few other personnel changes, just him leaving. They won 19 games. That's the difference. And when Michael left after the 93 championship to go and play baseball, the Bulls went from 57 regular season wins to 55. So I always thought that was like the definitive statement about who really was indispensable to their team. I
Hmm.
always thought LeBron had the edge.
And you also still gave credit to the fact that, the second year, the 95 year when Michael came back, of course, there was a boost and he gave
Yes,
them a boost, but they kind of ran out of steam in the playoffs anyway that year, but
yes,
ran into the Orlando team. But still, all great point. I think it's great. And that's why I'm saying I'm convinced that, and I think that's where I wanted to go with this segue to soccer. And so I look at the three. Clearly for me, it's the big three in terms of, and there's people out there who soccer has just been played by so many, and it's so, across the board. You can go through so many different generations, but to us, that almost three different generations. We have had Pele, we've had Maradona, and now we've had kind of the Messi. It was kind of like the Messi Ronaldo discussion, but I think the World Cup and what he's done since even sort of even as great as Ronaldo has been, I think Messi kind of just gets
Yes.
stepped goes into that elevated territory. But as far as I go, and I think most people would agree, um, but I again I see that they're so different, in so many ways in stature and in terms of a lot of different things. But yet I see so much of Messi in LeBron.
Yeah, I think when you look at that discussion, for me it's Pele and Messi
Right,
because Maradona could have been,
right,
but it was his career. He did what he did with it,
right.
and so talent and peak, yeah, phenomenal, and with those guys, but
And they all won their World Cup. They all
yeah,
won. Yeah, right.
absolutely. Absolutely. But for me, I think sustaining a career
Hmm.
is an achievement in itself. And Messi continues to do that well after most athletes in that sport lose their edge, lose their grip. I mean, he won a World Cup at an age when a lot of soccer players have just said, I can't do it anymore. And he keeps
Hmm.
finding ways to do it. And when it would be easy for him, okay, he won the World Cup. Okay, he can step away from the national team. He still hasn't. So I think he's going to be here next summer. He
Hmm.
just keeps going and going, and he doesn't lose effectiveness. He continues to keep himself in the kind of shape necessary to play. Pele, the problem that he has in that argument is that the club game was different then. It
Right.
wasn't as elevated as it is now. He played the whole of it, almost the whole of his career in Brazil. He never got really a chance to see what it would have been like in Europe. The money wasn't there in Europe like it is now, etc. So the argument there is different than it would be if you had, say, a Kareem LeBron argument or a Magic LeBron argument. It's the same league, obviously different teams and all that, but it's the same general stage. Whereas the Messi Pele argument, the form of the sport is so much different. But I
Hmm.
think it's hard to make a case against Messi when he just keeps going and going and going at the level that he is. And hey, they're right now. I mean, it's not easy to repeat as World Cup champion. We know, but they're as good a threat to win next summer as
Hmm.
anybody. Spain's
Sure.
going to be brutal. France. I mean, when you see a guy like Doué come up and he's the one of the key players on the best club in the world, except for on this past Sunday, and he hasn't even really made his splash for France yet. There's so much talent there, so it'll be really hard. But I think with where Lautaro has gone in the last 3 years, where McAllister has gone in the last 3 years, Enzo, I think with all those players continuing to ascend, they were pretty young and not quite on the biggest stage when they won it last time. Now they're all big time club players as well. So I think Argentina has a great shot to come back and do it again. Not necessarily I'm picking them, but I think they have a great shot.
Yeah, I do too. I think, and of course, I think it's going to be a little bit more wide open in terms of maybe um, because of the 48 teams. I think
Right?
it's just going to create a little bit more chaos in some weird places. Maybe not in the beginning, but in maybe those next stages. There, I think the knockout round gets bigger. If I'm,
Yes.
yeah.
I
So,
think that's the
um,
format. Yeah.
yeah, so it a good little NCAA tournament type feel maybe to the first round or two of the knockout stages. I think will be interesting. I don't know. I guess within group play it'll be fascinating because there'll be maybe some countries that don't normally get there and certain level of excitement and it's just that's going to be really interesting. But back to your original point about Messi and his longevity, and I think that's exactly it. Like his just like how does he keep doing this? But I think if he hangs on physically between now and next year, I think you can't take him off. There's no way with what he can do and he can orchestrate and pull strings and do what he's capable of doing. And then you have a set piece situations and things like that. He's too valuable at this point. And it's
Yeah.
the same thing with LeBron. Like if the I don't know what this next year or two might look like for him as you go off in the sunset and just, or does he end up on a contending team, or does the Lakers, elevate? We could talk. That's a whole nother discussion. But the point being is like, as long as there's this certain value, and I think that Messi has shown that over the past year or so, that I think and I think that playing in MLS is actually is probably the best plan for him,
Yeah.
especially leading up to a World Cup that's going to be played in this country.
Right. I think it reduces the load on him a little bit because his
Hmm.
winter won't be as busy.
Right.
He'll be able to get himself into playing shape through the early stages of next MLS season. Then he takes the break, goes with Argentina. So I think it actually is ideal. Competition in the league is better than people realize. It's not the permit. I'm not
Hmm.
pretending, but it's better than people realize. And I think that it's going to keep him sharp. I think he's going to be in really good shape to come here, to stay here next summer and do some phenomenal things.
Well, Mike, I appreciate you jumping on again and us having this discussion. We will definitely have it again before the World Cup, as maybe as this as they do the draw and all that kind of stuff. We can definitely keep checking
Love
back
it.
in, and I'm looking forward to how it's going to go. All of it happening next year, and it'll be here before we know it.
I'm really excited, John, and it was a pleasure doing this with you.
Absolutely. All right, Mike, you take care, and it's good having you on once again on Sounding Off on Soccer with John Krysinsky.